drop this video into that slide deck a little bit. All right, because there is no mic stand in here, I wish I could stand up and do this, but I'm gonna have to put the mic in this handy dandy little mic stand, my little water bottle. And now I can lean over and I have free hands. It's not the most convenient thing, but it works in a pinch. All right, so this is not gonna work well. Okay. So, you're not gonna stand up here and hold the mic for me the whole session.
Go ahead. Now you can concentrate.
Doug.
Go.
I'm gonna be sitting here thinking, well, pull up a chair at least.
All right.
He just wants to see behind the scenes. That's what it is. Of course, I could probably just yell and you'd hear me anyway. Okay. All right. So this is the Procreate app, and you can have a lot of different templates and all that kind of stuff. This session isn't really about the Procreate app, although you're going to learn some things about the Procreate app. So how many of you are using the Procreate app right now? Well, give me an idea. Okay, a few people over here. How many of you use Adobe Draw? A couple more. How many of you just have a piece of paper out and you're going to doodle on some paper? If you're not doing digital, then I want you to do that, okay? Don't sit there and just look. Get something out. I'm not going to make you share it, although I will encourage you to take a picture of your doodle and share it. But, all right. So one of the things that and I'm going to show a lot of things why I like the digital. It is not to make you go buy an iPad, okay? I have a Mac and I have an iPad and I'm very googly but I have an Android phone, and so I'm very, non-platform. But I'm going to show you why I really like the app and the iPad. So when I do a digital sketch, if you just look at this white screen, it's kind of like when you're writing a paper the first time, you're like, how do I start? One thing that I like to do first is Procreate has a whole lot of brushes, but you can also add brushes, and if you're a Procreate person, I'll show you how to do that after, okay? Under the textures in the brushes in Procreate, there's a grid. There's also a grid in Adobe Draw. You kind of have to dig in a little bit to find it. You choose a layer, and then you have the ability to make it a grid layer. And the reason why I like to add a grid is because it gets rid of the white page, and plus it gives me some lines to use as reference, right? So I set this grid, and I just kind of make it a gray color. And then I can come over here and change the size of the brush. Make it a little bit bigger. And so I use that brush to draw the grid. And so now I can add layers and I can draw on top of the grid, and it's not like using a white page. So obviously, you don't have to have a grid to sketchnote, but that's always my first step. So, all right, so when you're thinking about sketchnoting, usually you're sketchnoting some type of topic. Maybe it's the title of an article you're reading. Maybe it's, cell mitosis. I don't know if you want your kids to sketch that, But whatever it might be, there's going to be some type of title. So you can write that at the top. You can write letters, and writing letters is drawing. If you think about it that way, you've been drawing for a very long time. Even if your handwriting is awful, it's drawing. So what I'm going to do, I could just draw this right here, but it's really hard to draw small. But if you take your app and you zoom in, now it's going to be much easier to write letters and have them be kind of straight. So I'm just going to draw the word sketchnoting, okay? That's a little bit thick for me, so I'm going to come over here and make that smaller. You know what? Yeah. Make sure I started my recording. Okay, so now if I zoom back out, and if I got rid of the grid, now I've got this word that looks like, almost like I used some kind of cool font. Because I'm digital, I can take that word and I can move it around. If I decide I want my title over here, I just click and hold and move it over there. If I drew that on a piece of paper, I wouldn't be able to do that. So it's good and bad because the kind of OCD in me kind of gets a little, tied up in the details sometimes. But for me, it works. So I'm going to put it right here in the middle of the page because the first thing that Sylvia showed us how to draw at ISTE in Denver was a banner, because I always thought those banners look so cool. I can't draw a banner. And she showed us how to draw a banner in a couple of steps, and then I felt like I could draw after I drew a banner. So you're all going to draw a banner. That's your assignment right now, okay? So draw some kind of word. I always start with the text first, as opposed to drawing the banner and then trying to make the words fit. Write something. If it's just your name, write your name on a piece of paper, okay? So then what I'm going to do, because I'm in this app, I can work in layers. And I try to work in layers because then you can move parts of it around and you can put in color on one spot and not another. So I'm going to come in here into Procreate and I'm going to add a layer. So now I have my word on one layer. There's my word. And then I've got this other layer right here. And that's where I'm going to draw my banner, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my grid back on. What I want to do is draw a box around my word. Well, I guess more appropriately, it's a rectangle, okay? So I can draw a line, and it could be crooked, it's fine. So draw a line above and a line below. All right, so there's my word. I have a rectangle. Can you draw that? Yes. Okay, so now I'm going to add two more rectangles. I'm going to add a rectangle on one side. And notice how it kind of starts about halfway to a third of the way down here, and it's like part of the rectangle is hiding behind here. And so notice it kind of goes in a little bit like this, okay? So I'm going to draw one of those there, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay? You kind of see the banner forming, don't you? All right. And then two little lines in that rectangle, I'm going to draw from this corner to this corner. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. And now I have my banner. I know! It's like it's just boxes. What is that? And if you want to get really creative, especially if you're, digital, you can just come over here and you can erase this line, and you could do some kind of cool little edge, like that. Okay, so there's a banner. Because I have that on its own little layer here, let me hide the word. Because I have it on its own layer, I can easily color it. Okay, so with Procreate, up here in the upper corner, kind of hard to get there, but there's a little color dot. And if I click on that color dot, I have some options for colors. I can look at it as a disc, as classic panels. I can put in an exact hexadecimal color. I tend to lean towards the classic one. But so I can pick a color. Here's a nice little kind of a lighter blue. And if I want to color this, I could pick a brush and go around and draw it. But if I know it's just a big enclosed space, I can click and hold on this color dot and drag it over and let it go, and it fills it for me. So I'm going to click and hold and drag and let go, and it fills the color. And so when I do a banner, I usually will use that same color on the top and then on the top of those sides. And then the little triangle on the inside, it's kind of the shadow. It's the folded part, so I want it to be a little bit darker of a color. So I'm just going to come over here and pick a little darker blue and then click and hold. And then, so right now my word is the layer under my banner, but if I click and hold and drag it up, now my word is on the top, and so I have a banner with the word on it. And you drew that just by making 3 rectangles and 2 lines. And so as soon as Sylvia showed me how to do that, I'm like, okay, I can draw a banner. Yay! I still couldn't draw people, and I still don't draw people very well, but I can do this, okay? Now, if the little crooked lines are just too much for your, attention to detail, one of the cool things in Procreate is if I want to draw a straight line, all I have to do is hold at the end, and Procreate makes it a straight line. So you don't have to sit there and get a ruler out and try to do a straight edge. You can just draw and draw and draw, and then if I hold, now it's a straight line. And I can move it around. And if I got my line here, and I was like, ooh, I really want it to connect right there, I could zoom in and try to do it again, and usually it overlaps and it doesn't look right. But that line that I just drew, if I use the little, there's a little arrow up here, it's like a little select arrow. If I click on that and you look at this line now, you can see it's got the little dots at the end. I can actually take that dot and extend that line. And so I don't have to kind of redraw it. So now I've got some nice straight lines. So we drew rectangles. You can draw triangles. You can draw dots. You can draw circles. You can draw squigglies. You can draw straight lines. You can draw just about anything with those shapes. You can combine them one way or another. So you've got a circle. You can take your dots and make a face out of them. So there's a circle, a dot, and a squiggly. Now I have a face. We drew the banner with our rectangles. We have that up there. If you think about drawing anything, if you look at a picture online, look at it as how is it a combination of those shapes? Is it a circle with a box on top of it with part of the box erased? Is it, a couple of squigglies and some more lines? And it makes the concept of drawing so much less intimidating when you think about it as being shapes combined together. So one of the things I want you to draw next is a light bulb. So think about a light bulb. So if you're sketchnoting and a light bulb helps represent something like an idea, okay, or an aha moment, could be, a face with a light bulb on top of it, could represent something. So for a light bulb, think about it as you've got a circle, all right? And then you could think about maybe a triangle with part of the bottom cut off. Of course, you don't have to draw the lines in the middle. I'm just doing that so you can see how I'm combining the shapes. And then you could do a little rectangle here on the bottom and another little rectangle here and throw in a couple of lines. See the light bulb forming here. And even though this is not a fluorescent or LED light, you know, the traditional light bulb. So I had a circle with a triangle that I erased part of it. I did a rectangle, another rectangle, some lines, another couple of lines and a squiggly, and I could draw some lines out of it to represent the light, and I have my light bulb. Now, if I wanted to add color, I can come over here and I can pick a yellow, and I could click and hold and drop it right in there. Notice that it didn't fill in this part because all of the rest of it is sealed up, but I can drop that in there as well. So then I have my lit light bulb. Okay? You don't have to use color. If you're just using paper and pencil, it's okay. You could pick up a crayon and just use a crayon. It would be fine. Nobody's going to judge you, and if they do, they're not worthy of your attention. So light bulbs are something that are fun to draw. All right, when you think about love, if you want to talk about you love something, the image that comes to your head is a heart, okay? Just draw a heart. I'm going to hide this layer. Myself a new layer. I'm going to go ahead and pick red from the start, and I'm going to draw a heart. Doesn't have to be perfect. Fill it with red, now I have a heart. So if I'm taking notes and I'm listening to somebody do a keynote and they're talking about how they love something, I could draw a little heart and draw the word inside of it. And again, I like to use extra layers so I can move things around. So he loves kids. And then maybe I decide, well, I don't like where kids is. Maybe I'll move kids over here. Maybe I'll rotate kids so it's this way. Maybe I want to take these things and I want to make the whole thing a little smaller. And then maybe I want to move it over here. You can't do that with paper. So you have a whole lot more options if you do it digitally. So a lot of sketchnoting is thinking about what visual helps you remember those words. I call it, and I didn't come up with this term, I Googled it, visual vocabulary. So when you think of a word, what visuals can you use to represent it? So like success might be, a little stick man on the side of a mountain, climbing up the mountain. So there's a lot of things out there. If you Google visual vocabulary, lots of things you can use. But so like think. So if I wanted to do something about think, maybe I draw a face and a little speech bubble with a question mark. Okay, so he's thinking. It doesn't have to be, Rembrandt. Okay. You want to represent growth. Draw a tree. Draw a flower. Again, a line, some squigglies, and a dot gives you a flower. It doesn't have to have all the petals and the shading and, the appropriate biological features. That's not the point of this. The point of this is to give it that picture that helps you remember what you're writing. Like I said, success, the mountain climber. I'm not going to draw that one. So people. I always have trouble drawing people, and I still don't like drawing people, and that's my biggest challenge. One of the ways that I because I want the person to have some type of emotion. I don't want it to just be a normal stick person. I could draw a normal stick person. I know, give me another layer. Draw the head, body, the feet. There's a stick person, right? But you're limited. You can't show them bending their arm. You can't show them running. You can't show them doing anything. So I think of drawing a person as 13 lines in an oval. So here's how I draw my person, and I want you to draw a person with me here. So the first thing I'm going to do is draw a capital I. And the top of the eye is their shoulders. And the body of the eye there is the torso. And then the bottom of the eye is their hips. Okay, think of that. Okay, so there's 3 lines. So let me draw the legs. I'm going to draw, there's a line there, and there's another line, and then I'm going to draw the foot. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing on this side. 3 more lines, feet. And then I'm going to draw the arms. So line there, line there, line there, line there. I'm going to extend the eye just a little bit so he's got a neck. And I'm going to draw an oval on the top. So now I have my stick person that has a whole lot more options. If I wanted to show them, dancing, I could do this one. Oops. Let me get rid of this. No pressure at all doing this recording and in front of people. Normally I do this sitting on my couch, watching Netflix, mindlessly drawing. Okay, so here are my 2 little dancing people. Maybe step 2 of the dance would be, let's take this one's arm. Oh. And have their arm go this way. Ooh, kind of funky. So you could have one dance and another dance. But you can give it emotion and more options by having the joints in there. But you're not worried about it being, anatomically correct. Please don't. But think 13 lines in an oval and start with the letter I, and you've got yourself a good stick person. So one of the things that I like about the Procreate app is I can do all this stuff, but then I can share it out. So if I came up with something that I liked and I wanted to share it in Procreate, and most of the drawing apps do this, you just have to know where to look. But in Procreate, I can click on my little settings tool up here in the corner. And I have some options. I could actually insert a photo. So I'm going to show you in a second how to do that to where you can trace over it. But I'm going to go to Share, and I could export it as a Photoshop, and I could bring it into Photoshop and do some more things with it. I could do it as a PDF. I could do it as a PNG file and save it wherever I wanted to save it. I could just push it out to Facebook right then, or I could save it as an image to my iPad, which I do a lot at the time. And I save that, and now, because I didn't connect my iPad. Okay, come on. I know. Save. So now I have that as a picture. I could post it wherever I wanted to. But the really cool part is this next button where it says video. You have the option, and it defaults to recording the time lapse of you drawing. I can come here and say time lapse replay, and it's going to show everything that I just drew so that I can see how my drawing changed as I revised it. Think of it like the revision history of a Google Doc, right? But you can also then take that video and you can export it and share that as well. So on my sketch a day, do this so it's small enough here. Should have had this pulled up already. So my sketch a day, I didn't do it at first, but then I started doing it. I not only post a picture, but I post a video as well. So like this is one I did this morning. I went through the letters of the alphabet, now I'm doing numbers. So I posted the picture, that's cool. But what I can also do is post the video, and then people can watch how I drew the number 5. So they could see I sketched it out a little bit first, and then I went over it with the lines, and I dropped in some colors. And so, granted, it goes by really fast. It's not like a step-by-step tutorial, but it's a little bit, more insightful into the process there. You can also do live broadcasts. There's a lot of stuff in here. Obviously, can't go into all of it at this session. So one other thing I wanted to show you, because I do this sometimes too for people. I'll hide these dancing people here. Is just a head and a torso. You want to represent somebody doing something, but you don't want to get bogged down in the person. So I draw a circle, and then kind of a little half oval there. You could give them, some bottom there if you wanted to. And there's your person. Fill it with some color. And it looks like a person, You could consciously use different skin colors if you wanted to. I tend to just go gray so that I'm not, leaving anybody out. Just all gray, all one. Okay. You can draw little thought bubbles. You can draw speech bubbles. Think of cartoons, So if you wanted to do somebody thinking something, you usually do little circles like this. That's thinking it. If you want them saying something, you would generally, do something more definitive, and then just write your text on the inside. And again, just like I did with the banner, usually I will write the text first and then draw the speech bubble around it. So I'm not trying to fit my letters to it. I'm drawing the container. But so like Kevin was talking about last night in his keynote, YouTube is your friend on this. Not just if you're learning whichever app you're using, but just sketchnoting and drawing things in particular. If you go to YouTube and say, how to draw a cat, there are videos out there, dozens and ways to draw cats. And people are showing them like this, and they're drawing them step by step, and you can sit there and pull it up and draw with them and do it in the comfort and the security of your own home, and nobody's watching you, and you can grow and feel better about your skills as you do that. Lots of good websites out there about how to draw, and they break it down step by step. Draw this circle, draw this line. That's how I did all of this, was just by pulling up a website and doing that. Another thing I like to do is I kind of hoard clip art. And what I do is I save it in Google Photos. Just because, I do Pinterest a little bit, but I'm not all about the Pinterest. And Google Photos gives it to me right there on my Photos app with whatever device I'm using. So if I find things that are interesting, I will drop them in an album, whether it's a sketch note somebody does, or a quote that I like, and then I will come in here when I'm trying to think, what do I want to sketch next for my sketch a day, and I'll find something, and I'll either bring it in and trace it to get started, or yes, you can do the Bitmoji thing, so you can save your Bitmojis in there, drop your Bitmojis into your sketch, and then sketch on top of it, like I did here at the beginning. Pull up that thing again. So this first slide, I dropped in my Bitmoji and then I sketched on top of it.
Can you show us how to trace?
Uh-huh. All right, so I'm not really worried about the grid so much when I'm tracing. So I'm going to come over to, oops, It will help if I actually show you. I'm going to come over to my little tools. You can't really see it because it's up there, but there it goes. Okay, right there, the little wrench. And I'm going to go to Image, and I'm going to say Insert a Photo. And because I have it on my computer already, I can come in here, I can find it. Like I said, I'm a hoarder. Here's a shoe. I'll take the shoe. Okay. So here's a shoe. I want to use a shoe. The other shoe dropped or whatever, you know. So now I bring in that picture, it's on its own layer. If I want to make that a little bit more transparent so I can actually see me drawing on top of it, there's a couple of ways to do it. The easiest one without getting into all kinds of weird stuff, see this letter N right here on the Procreate? And it's going to be different on different apps, but somewhere in there there's a setting for opacity. So if I click on the N, it opens up this little toggle here, and I can say, just make that, you know, just enough so I can see it. Okay. Then I'm going to come up here, I'm going to add a layer on top of it so that at the end I can hide the picture and I can just show my drawing on top of it. So I've got a new layer, and now I'm going to take my pen, I'm going to zoom in nice and close, and I'm going to trace my shoe. I'm not going to be really detailed here, because you don't want to watch me do that. And if you get to the point where it's so transparent you can't see it, you can just go over to that layer, bring it up a little bit more, and put it back down. And so I can come in here and draw my little lines. And then if you hide the shoe, then you're left with your shoe. And you can get pretty detailed with that. One of the ones that I did, so I did this one, but I didn't hand draw that globe. I put in a globe and I traced the globe. Okay, I didn't draw those hands. I found some hands and I put them in there and I traced the hands. And so I can actually show you how I did this one because I can play the time lapse. So there's the globe. I got in there and I traced the globe, traced the hands. I didn't like the first one I did, so I did it again. I changed my lettering as it went along. I was like, I don't like that lettering. And then I zoomed in really, really close and just drew some little hearts. And so eventually, you know, it gets completed. You can, although I don't do this very much because then I started feeling, you know, am I wasting time? You can go in and look at a sketch and see how long you spent on a sketch. And then I was like, oh man, I don't need to do that anymore because then I'm not going to want to do this anymore. But honestly, this is great therapy, I'm telling you. It's an escape. You're being creative at the same time. I like reading, but you're not really creating anything when you read. You're consuming, and sometimes that's good. Oop. That's telling me we're almost done. But so it's still going, you know, and so I was still filling in colors and that kind of stuff. But then when it's done, I can export that picture and I can export that video and I share it out and I put them all in one spot so people can find it. And so like on this one, I wanted to have the words around it, so I just took that circle, made a copy of it, made it a little bit bigger, and then used that as a guide for the lettering. I didn't have to, you know, and I didn't come up with that technique. I Googled it, and I found somebody who said, here's a great way to put some shaped letters, you know, on your shape. Do this. I'm like, okay, I can do that. Things about like drawing the block letters, there's tricks to that. You Google that, how to draw block letters. There are people out there who could show you how to draw block letters. But all of that, again, it's not about the art, but I get that you want it to look good. You know, I get that. So Diane, does that help?
It does.
Okay. So in this app again, so you've got your drawing tools. Let me get out of this so I don't mess that sketch up here. I'll go back to my shoe. Lots of brushes in Procreate. If you're a Procreate user, go to Google and search for free Procreate brushes. They're there. You're not sure how to install it? Google how to install Procreate brushes. It's there. It helps you. I have a lot of free ones, and so if you're a Procreate user, there weren't that many of you in the room, so I can make this offer. If you want to come up here after the session and you're on a Mac, on an iPad, obviously, because you're using Procreate, I can push them out to your iPad using AirDrop, and then you'll have an extra 300-something brushes without having to go look for them, okay? But what I'll do, I didn't put any links to kind of those sources in the presentation, but I'll go back and I'll add some of those. It's good and bad. The more options you add, the more options you have, and you get, if you're the indecisive kind, like you go to the cereal aisle and you see 500 kinds of cereal, and you're like, can't we just have 3 kinds of cereal? You can have 3 brushes, it's fine. And Adobe Draw, you have some limited brushes. You can tweak them a little bit, but you don't have a gazillion options here. But I like playing around with the brushes, so that's one of the things that I like about Procreate. One of the things I don't like about Procreate is that you can't export it as a vector graphic. So if I take this picture and I put it into something and then I want to change the size of it, it looks a little funny. It gets little weird edges on it and that kind of stuff. There's some hacks to that. If you Google it, you can figure that out. Basically, you can send the picture over to Adobe Draw and then send it from Adobe Draw to Illustrator, and then you have a vector. All kinds of ways around things. But again, I like the digital because it makes me look like I can do more I can do. You know, the tech is helping me. And because the tech makes it a little bit easier, I feel a little bit more comfortable putting it out there. But if you're all about the paper, I drew on paper too. I'm not necessarily going to take a picture of this and post this on, Facebook. But if you do analog drawing, you can still share it digitally. Take a picture of it, share the picture. Lots of sketchnoters out there walk around with their Moleskine tablet, Moleskine, notebooks and draw in their Moleskine, and then they'll take pictures and share it. But so back on the presentation here. Let me close this video.